This episode, we're going to talk about how my team went in round 3 of the 2022 AFL Supercoach season. Hope you enjoy. So, week 3, as you kind of seen by the thumbnail, was definitely a week of rookie roulette. The ones that had the good players on field scored really well, and the guys that didn't, like myself, suffered a bit this week. It was also a week where the midfield didn't score a lot of points. Few players who were very popular got tagged, and we'll actually see that in my team review. Guys who would be really good captain options weren't picked, and other ones that were very, very lucky to hit 100 or just go underneath. Let's check out how the team went. This week we scored 2,113 points. It wasn't great, but it definitely wasn't the worst score we've had. There was a lot of scores around the similar mark, and we were very, very lucky that Will Brodie had a good week this week. Otherwise, we were going to struggle to get over 2,100. It was a definite possibility, and a lot of premiums we had at the start of the week just didn't score very well. It doesn't normally happen, but it happened this week, and it kind of stinks. We've now dropped 4,800 spots, so it's not great, but it is only week 3. I think between me and 1,000, maybe something like 200 points. So it's not too bad, but we don't want to hit that trend anymore. We've used 5 trades up until now and a trade boost, so it wasn't too bad. But the big thing for us is that we've actually jumped hugely in team value. Obviously, coming into round 3, we're at $10 million, and now we've put almost 850k on our team value. That's from premiums going up. That's from rookies and mid-prices jumping up in price as well. And that's what we want to see when we start upgrading our teams. So, let's go and look at the team. The backline this week was probably the best scoring area for us, which, considering how strong our midfield was, is a bit sad. Tom Stewart, lucky to get 104, I think. Aaron Hall, mate. The positions of the North players this week was terrible, and he had the best job running out from defence, especially after all the behinds that Brisbane kicked, and no one was there to accept the ball. I reckon he lost 30 to 40 points just on turnovers because the North midfielders weren't there. Short did quite well, 110. I'm not sure how high his ceiling is because he seems to do really well up until about the halfway point, or he'll score 100 and then just seems to fall off a bit. So I'm not sure if that's a bit of a change of role once that happens, or he sips back and then tries to govern from the back line and let others touch it more. But for a Supercoach wise, it's a little bit scary. George Hewitt, 111, pretty happy with that. And Jake Bowie. So he was our cash cow that we brought in defense. Did really well. Obviously scored at 89, which is fantastic for his cash gen. Next week, well, this week is the last week he's got that 150 in his 3-round average because it's week 2, 3, 4. So that's obviously this week being round 4. After that, his cash generation will slow down a little bit, but he's still going to get to 400k, which is fantastic for the price we paid. This week, we had Paddy Mccartney on field, and he was looking really good. I think he maybe did a couple of turnovers late in the game that saw his what would have been 75 drop down to a 60, and we had to take him, obviously, because he was on the field. Mitch Hinge, as you can see from the bench, has actually really incorporated himself quite well into this Adelaide team, which means that he's seeing a lot more of the ball. I think he even took some kickouts this week, which was pretty crazy for us. From now on, I think we're going to run Hinge on field and then McCartney on the bench as an emergency, just in case someone's laid out. Sam DeConning scored a 50, which is great for him. So next week, he's going to start increasing in price. Moving down the list, Jack Mcrae. So I don't think he got tagged, but this is definitely his worst game of the season. And it means that guys who didn't pick him at the start of the year can now get him in a bit cheaper. Similar to a Touk Miller, really underperformed, and probably you wanted an extra 50 points from him this week, at a minimum. As we said in the intro, the midfielders this week for us really sucked, and that meant that our score really, really dropped. So Touk Miller, 76, got tagged by 2 people at one point for majority of the game. What can you do? It's a 76. Lachie Neale got tagged by Greenwood. I thought maybe that would happen. He was actually our captain. So I had this week. So he was actually our captain for round 3. I was very, very happy that he made 100, but obviously you want more. North maybe not the best team on field, but we do have options like Greenwood who can tackle, who can tag, and when they do, opposition midfielders just drop in scoring. So something to look out for a little bit. I think David Noble might try and implement that a little bit more to try and nullify some of these really big, powerful guys that get huge amounts of disposals every week. Cripps, 119, a little bit lower than what we wanted. He was at 99 and then scaling hit. So I think just that type of game, maybe he didn't see as much of the ball or didn't kick as many goals as what he had in previous weeks. I think he only had 1 goal, so it's a little bit 50-50 for him. We're glad we got him in. 137 average is still fantastic, but right now we've only seen a 119 from him, and we want to get 120 plus for him to be a keeper for the whole year, and that's why we brought him in. Mcrae. So 103 is not terrible. He didn't cop much of the tag, but he's very, very reliant on his tackling to score points. He didn't have a huge amount of clearances, I don't think, or not as many as normal, or at least his first game. But 103 is what you'll take. So he has that 70 in his 4-round average, well, his 3-round average, which will cycle out this week. So his BE, his break even, let's just check it out, his break even will jump down quite a lot. So it will go back down quite a lot because you'll have a 3-round average of like 100 each week instead of having, a 70 in there, which means that he should jump up in price. If I were you guys, I would seriously consider not having him set as a keeper for the whole year. I just think it's a bad decision. He's a great cash cow. Offload him when he gets to 500k. I don't think he's going to be a keeper for the whole year. Maybe if he can get to like a 120 average, you'd say yes. But right now, would I pick him over Petrarca? Probably not, just to finish my team. Now, Horne-Francis. So he did really well this week in a North side that just stunk and just saw none of the ball. He was about the only player that kept running and kept moving for the whole game, and I think he's going to see more mid-time at North. A little bit of a slow burn, especially at that 200k price mark, but if we check out his break-even, he's still going to make 40k this week. So you've got to keep him, and he was a good starting pick. Nick Dacos. So similar to Horne-Francis, ended up around the same point, and similar break-even and average as well. So slow burns from him. I think Dacos probably will end up being our D6 for a while when DPP comes in, but we'll just wait and see if he gets it. Connor Mcdonald. So I loopholed Stevens this week with Owens, as we saw in the week 3 review. It worked out really well, but it meant that I actually have Josh Ward, because I previously pressed optimize. I actually had Josh Ward on field. So a 54 is not terrible. He did get 20 possessions, but I think he ended up turning over, or they weren't as effective as what it was. So he's actually building into his body and building into the game plan. That's from what I've heard. Maybe I have to rewatch the game and we'll see. But that's what I'm hearing at the moment. So he could be due for 100 or at least a 90 in a couple of weeks, which would boost up his average. And it would actually mean that his scoring potential and his price generation capabilities really, really jumps up. And that's kind of what we're looking for. Similar to a couple of other players like Jimmy Rowe last year or a James Jordan who are around the same price and value market. Once they get that 100 in their 3-round average, you're laughing. I'm expecting Ward to get something to about 350k. It might be a couple of weeks later than we thought, but that's what it's looking like. If you had a Patrick Naish, for example, you'd be a lot happier, but I think they're just kind of on different levels of player. So Dylan Stevens. Oi. He had a couple of turnovers and a couple of 50s, I think, or at least free kicks that really hurt his scoring and kind of hurt Sydney when that happened. And that's kind of what happened with his 50. 23. He scored a 95 last week. I don't believe Longmire is going to drop him. One bad game isn't going to do that for him. So he's pretty much set in the side. You take the good with the bad, especially with rookies. And those teams, like we're seeing from the top 1,000, that had less rookies on field are the ones that are doing really well. So if you went that strategy, good on you. You're doing really well, and I'm proud of you. Heading down the rest of the midfield rookies. So Mcdonald here, 51. You take it from a 117k rookie. And then Owens is our loophole player. So maybe he comes back into the side. Maybe we find a guy that's 100k that we can upgrade or downgrade to or with. But we'll wait and see what happens. So This week was kind of the week where it was make or break for a couple of the ruckmen. And Gawn and Grundy were those players. Guys that had really struggled to score over 100. And that was kind of the benchmark. I think this year, ruckmen are going to score less. Something about the 666, something about a lot of teams now playing a second ruckman. We're not going to see those big, huge 150 scores. Maybe from an English who's basically solo ruck at the Dogs, but not from these guys like Jackson and Darcy Cameron who are taking points off Gawn and Grundy. It's just not going to happen. So if you downgraded them last week, good on you. You guys are much farther ahead than everyone else who didn't. And that's something I'm kind of looking at doing this week, but we'll just wait and see. So Gawn 117, looked okay on field. I thought he might have scored higher, but he did get scaled up about 8 points in the end, so can't complain with that. And similar with Grundy. Grundy was scoring really poorly in the first half. I believe Radigalia and someone else actually got injured as well, and that's when his scoring started jumping up. So it's a bit of a watch and see from there. If you're sharing ruck time, you're only going to be expecting 100, and paying 650k for that player really hurts. So if you offloaded him last week, perfect. If not, then what can you do, really? Hugh Dixon scored a 61. Looked okay on field. Looked quite good as Nick Nat's number 2. Obviously, West Coast didn't win, but there's a position for him on field, and hopefully he plays a few more games. He could be Bruce next week. We'll just wait and see. But what can you do, that Supercoach? Josh Dunkley. So I'm glad he hit back with a 129. If you had vice-captained him, you would have been happy with that score. I don't think a lot of people took it, but as you can see from my midfield, he's our highest scoring player on field this week. Apart from Cornelio, who no one would have picked as captain or vice-captain. Zach Butters. So he got taken out by his own team member in Sam Powell-Pepper, and it really, really hurt. So he got taken out, played the rest of the game, but obviously a 58 is not what we want from a guy that was averaging 120 every week. Cornelio back with the 149. It's really good. It's fantastic cash gen, and it means that potentially he's a keeper in our team for the whole year. That's something that we're looking for in these value picks. Even if he doesn't end up being a keeper, he's at least a really good mid-bench cover option, and that's what we want. So we brought Will Brodie in. As you can see, he's jumped 60k, so he actually had a really good game. His time on ground was about 80-85 instead of the usual 60%, which is fantastic for him and fantastic for Brodie owners like myself and hopefully like you guys. Hopefully he keeps up the scoring. Couple more 90s. If we check out his break even, -23 means that he'll end up being about 350k next week, or 330k, and then the following week about 370, which is great. That's what we want from a guy who we took a gamble on. Him plus a rookie upgrade equals a premium, and that's what we're looking for. Tristan Cherry, so bit of an 81. He looked good, but obviously North got smashed. So you know what can you do? You take it as you go. This week I actually had Josh Rochelle on, which wasn't great, and that's where the rookie roulette kind of comes in. I took his score, or I took him over potentially fielding Hayes or Martin. From now on, Rochelle's on the bench forever. Martin's coming on field, but last week we didn't do it. I think Rochelle's an okay pick. I think you'd be happy with his scoring. He's likely to pump out another 80 once he kind of gets used a little bit more in the team, is kind of the right words to say. But he was in position. If you watch the Adelaide game, he was in position a lot to get the ball, and he just didn't get given the ball. So once that starts happening, once they realise, hey, this guy's actually really good, he's going to see a lot more of the ball. And going to be like a Jimmy Rowe situation last year where he ended up being about 350k by the end of it. Adelaide does have a few people like Mick Henry, like Rowe, who play a similar small forward running type position, but they just don't have the X factor that he's got. So when they start using him, then he's going to start doing really well. Nick Martin. So this is the week to get Martin in. If you don't have him, you must get him in. Another score, another huge score, and he's going to jump 100k. So get him in. No Zach Merritt means that Nick Martin's going to see a bit more of that mid-time, and that's what we really want. And Hayes 57. So he didn't do as well. I'm hearing some reports that St Kilda might look at giving him a break, but we've taken the score that we've got. Ideally, we want to get 2 or 3 more price rises out of him before we have to offload him. But for a 102k rookie, he's done the job, bro. right? Especially if you guys had him on field in that round 1 with the 125. He would have separated you from a lot of other players. So, checking out what we're thinking of doing this week. I haven't really locked it in, but I'm either going to hold or I'm going to downgrade Gordon Grundy to English and Wits. It will net me about 280k, which is fantastic for round 6's upgrades, but we really want to hold. I guess I'm tossing up between the two. They're my two options. I'll let you guys know what happens by the end of the week, really. If we have a look over here, we're just going to go and check out our VC and C options for this week before we finish up. So we don't really have anyone for Melbourne and Port Adelaide, so we have to strike them off the list. Maybe we put Lockie Neal as VC this week against Geelong. I don't know how Geelong are going generally against good midfielders. If we had a Heaney, would 100% go Heaney in that forward line, but we just don't have him. So moving down the list, West Coast and Collingwood. If you had a Lipinski, you could probably go and vice-captain him, or a Chris potentially, or an Adams if you've got him. Richmond versus Western Bulldogs. So the luck of us having Owens means that we can basically choose anyone over here as our option. We might actually go, let's do a bit sneaky this week. I don't believe Richmond are going to tag, and I expect Mcrae to have a better week. So I'm going to go over here and VC Mcrae this week, and we're going to put the captaincy on Cripps. I think that's the play this week. I should be able to loophole both scores depending on how Mcrae goes. I think Richmond's midfield are going to go and give up a lot of points, as we've kind of seen throughout the year so far. And if not, Cripps is going to go bananas. So no one's going to be able to tag him. Let me know how your teams went this week. Did you guys make the right plays? What did you score? Let me know down in the comments. And remember, guys, we've got to hit those subscription buttons too. If you like the content, it shows me that you guys really like it. So hit the like, hit the subscribe button. Tell your friends about the Centre Bounce channel. More interviews and some other content coming up that you guys can really look out for. And we've got our watch list episode with Shaq coming up later in the week as well. All right, guys. Remember, I'm Big J. Have a nice day. Bye.